Hi everybody, Olive here, and for the very first time I'd like to do a book haul. This is obviously a very belated Christmas book haul since it is now almost the end of January, but since I just started my channel and I had all of these books that I had yet to shelve in anticipation of making this video, I thought I'd share a little bit of what I received, what I bought for myself, all sorts of Christmas goodness. So first I'll talk a little bit about the books that I bought for myself, which are far more numerous than the books I received because no one really knows what to buy me. So let's take a look at the things that I treated myself to over Christmas. When my parents were in town, we stopped by Half Price Books, and of course I could not resist buying myself some things. So the first thing that I bought is Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking. And I read on the back of this book that this book talks a lot about dealing with loss. And I've heard so many good things about Joan Didion and have yet to read any of her books. And I thought that this would be a really good place to start with her and a really good piece of nonfiction for me to read. The next book I got from Half Price Books is No One Is Here Except All of Us by Ramona Asubel. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about this one besides the fact that I was sold by the cover. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. I think that saying actually pertains more to people and situations than books because clearly we judge books by their covers. And this one is gorgeous. It has birch trees, which if I ever give you a look at my living room, is birch tree dominated. I love birch trees. And this cover is fantastic. So I know it takes place in a Romanian village, and obviously something happens in that Romanian village, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Look at the birch trees, they're just so pretty. The next book I got for myself, The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. Again, I have heard so many good things about Jeffrey Eugenides, and he seems to be a very popular and very successful living author. And I have been wanting to read this one for a really long time, and now it's sitting on my shelves. I read on some list somewhere on the internet that this was a book that was recommended for people who had just graduated college. Now I'm a few years away from that, but still, anything that could help me continue to cope with that transition would be well appreciated. Those were the 3 books that I allowed myself to buy at Half Price Books. But this one I had on hold at the library and then caved during a trip to Barnes & Noble, mostly because of the cover. Again, I'm shallow like that. But it is Wild Alone by Krasi Zorkova. And I've actually already read this one, and I'll talk more about how I felt about it during my January wrap-up, but I had a lot of mixed feelings about this one. I don't have any mixed feelings about the cover because it's still gorgeous, even though I had not so great of a reaction to the story itself. But the story revolves around a character named Thea Slavin, who is Bulgarian, as is our author, which is a really cool thing. And she comes to Princeton on a music scholarship. She is a very gifted pianist. She is trying to solve a mystery in the past of her family, and I don't want to give away too much because that is a little bit of a mystery of the first section of the book. But she meets 2 brothers who influence her in different ways, and I don't want to give away too much, so that's all I'm gonna say. If you like Twilight, this might be for you. That's all I'm gonna say until my wrap up. Okay, the next 2 books I ordered a while back and they didn't come until after Christmas because they were shipped from Britain. Both of these books were available in American editions, but I preferred the British editions and I was willing to wait to have the prettier covers. The first one is Diving Bells by Lucy Wood, and you can tell from my bookmark I'm currently reading this. Just look at how pretty it is. You have the shiny golds and you have the mermaid. It's just very nautical themed, which I am all about. I think it's absolutely stunning. You have a little bit of an octopus and a lantern down here in this corner. I heard about this book through Book Riot. I have been making my way through the backlog of Book Riot podcasts, and in an episode from 2013, I think it was, they talked about this book. And it is a series of short stories, And the leading short story, called Diving Bells, is about women who are taken in kind of a submarine-like vessel to go underwater to retrieve their husbands who have been taken. I am finding it very interesting thus far. That's the only story I've read. I don't read a whole lot of short stories and short story collections, but this one just interested me so much that I just had to get my hands on it. Plus, it's so pretty. The next British book that was well worth the wait is The Food of Love Cookery School by Nikki Pellegrino. I heard about this one on Rose Mannering's channel, and anyone I mention on my videos I'll include down below the links to their channels. It has a beautiful cover and set in Italy and talks about food, and that's really all you need to sell me. This is pretty. The next book I ordered for myself is Pavlovsk, The Life of a Palace by Suzanne Massie. Now, anyone who's a little bit familiar with Russian history and Russian history writing probably knows the name Robert K. Massie. He's written probably the big biographies. He wrote a great biography recently of Catherine the Great, and then he wrote one of my favorite books of all time, the biography of Nicholas and Alexandra. This is his former wife, who's obviously also interested in Russia, and Pavlovsk is a palace in St. Petersburg, or just slightly outside of the city of St. Petersburg, named for Pavel, or Paul I, who is Catherine the Great's son. It is a absolutely beautiful palace. It was occupied by the Nazis during World War II, and the restoration that they did to the palace, I have seen it, obviously, since they did the restorations, and it is incredible. How they got it looking like it does now after the destruction that the Nazis did to it is absolutely astonishing. I was lucky enough to go to Pavlovsk when I studied abroad in St. Petersburg, and I got to tour it with my wonderful Russian friend and tutor. I'm really looking forward to reading more in depth about the palace and the history behind it, and hopefully reading about it will take me back there a little bit. Now, this next book is a little bit of a gift and a little bit of something I purchased for myself, and I'll tell you why. This is Hunger by Elise Blackwell, and this is a very short novel, I would call it a novella, that takes place during the siege of Leningrad. The reason why I say this book is half something I bought for myself and half a gift is because after I already bought it for myself, I received it as a gift, as a late Christmas gift from my sister. I can't really decide which edition I like better, but if I end up loving it, then I have two. The next 4 books I purchased from Book Outlet after finding a link there somewhere on BookTube and immediately needing to order things because of how cheap and wonderful everything looked. So the first book I heard about from Mercedes on Mercy's Bookish Musings. This is The Palace of Curiosities by Rosie Garland. Again, I don't know too much about it, but I know that it takes place at a circus. Wherever this book takes me, I want to go. The next book, again, I bought mainly because of the cover, and it is An Uncommon Education by Elizabeth Purser. What I do know about this book is that it has a bookish main character and takes place at a school, which is something I'm really interested in reading, so looking forward to finding out more about this one and diving into it at some point. Is anyone else noticing a trend that I'm buying books solely because of their covers? I don't do that all the time, I swear. The other 2 books from Book Outlet that I bought revolve around Russia, again, unsurprisingly. The first one is From Splendor to Revolution, The Romanov Women by Julia P. Gallardi. This book obviously talks about all the women from the Romanov dynasty, and paging through it, I was really excited to see the name Xenia, or the Russian version Ksenia, who was Nicholas II's sister. I just got done reading a biography about her. That book was horribly written and only kept me going because I am so interested in the subject matter, so I'm hoping this book talks about her and all the other Romanov women with a lot more grace. The last book that I bought from Book Outlet unfortunately does not have a dust jacket, but I can tell you a lot what it's about, and it is Red Fortress by Catherine Meredale. This book talks about the history of the Kremlin, which is the very center of Moscow, and was a fortress in the very early years of Moscow. I checked this book out from the library, I think back when it was first released, and got distracted by other things and felt bad because other people were kind of waiting for it. So I thought it would probably be best to just own a copy. The last two I got as gifts from my mom for Christmas. The first one is Starlight Symphonies of Oak and Glass by Alexandria Nolan. I did read a little bit about this one. It seems to be the story of a magical lake set in Michigan in the 19th century. And I just am so into the sound of this book. And the fact that it is self-published is an interesting and very appealing thing. It doesn't appear to be self-published. I mean, she got a very good artist to work for her. So I'm very excited to read this one. And the last one that my mother got me for Christmas has been on my Amazon wish list forever, and I just could never find it within myself to justify buying it. And it is The Russian Wordsworth by Michelle Berdy. This book is similar to another book I own that kind of intertwines language lessons with lessons on Russian history and culture. So for example, this section talks about being a dog lover or a cat lover, and will give you the Russian vocabulary for those things, and then also talk about how the Russians think and feel about dog and cat lovers and owning pets in general. It's just a really creative way to learn Russian, and I have found and have heard that learning in context is the absolute best way to learn. So this is going to be an invaluable tool in my Russian language learning. So that wraps up my very first book haul. Thank you so much for tuning in and seeing how shallow I am in my book purchases and buying only for their covers. Well, not only, but just mostly. Looking forward to having these gorgeous books on my shelves and reading them in the very near future. Until next time, bye.